And we did the 5 books of Moses, yep, and then Joshua and Judges, and that was all horrible. And then God says, well, okay, the people say, we want a king. They have a king. They have a succession of kings. Saul was the first one. He was an unmitigated disaster. Great start, rotten finish. God raised up David to take his place. Great start, and then he stumbles, and all the promises God made to him about one of your sons will always sit on the throne forever seem to be doomed. Now, David had a number of sons, and then there's a lot of fuss about who was going to take over the kingdom, and Solomon was the one. So we're going to look at the first 11 chapters of 1 Kings, which is the story of Solomon. And I thought, before that I went pear-shaped too, and I thought, well, that's the time to put Proverbs into that, because Proverbs are ascribed to King Solomon. So that's why I've coupled it that way. King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived. Wisdom. Would you rather be smart or wise? What's the difference? Smart is, I know a lot of stuff. I have knowledge. Is that the same as wisdom? No. Wisdom is, I understand what the right thing to do is, and I do it. That's wisdom. And God promises to bless that. Now, we're going to look at the story of Solomon here, and summarising those first 11 chapters. Okay, I'm going to need some help. Okay, here we go. So, Solomon was appointed. So this guy, Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was one of King David's advisors, replied to King David, may the Lord, the God of my Lord the King, decree that it happen. May Solomon be king. And may the Lord be with Solomon as he has been with you. God has blessed you, David. Now may he also bless and use Solomon, my Lord the King, and may he make Solomon's reign even greater than yours. So Israel refers to the reign of David and Solomon as the golden age. It was their peak, their pinnacle. After that, when we get into the rest of 1 Kings, we'll see from then on it's pretty much all downhill. So David's final words to Solomon. I'm going where everyone on earth must go someday. We all know that, don't we? We are mortal, won't be here forever. Take courage and be a man. Observe the requirements of the Lord your God, so that you'll be successful in all that you do and wherever you go. If you do this, then the Lord will keep the promise he made to me. He told me, if your descendants live as they should and follow me faithfully with all their heart and soul, one of them will always sit on the throne of Israel. That was 2 Samuel 7, the promise that God made to David. And David saying, well, mate, I've done my dash. I'm about to finish my race. I pass on the baton to you. Be faithful, obey the Lord, and he will bless you. If not, well, we'll see. God gives Solomon a great start. He gives him a blank check. Solomon loved the Lord and followed all the decrees of his father, David, except, an exception, that Solomon too offered sacrifices and burnt incense at the local places of worship. The cracks are beginning to show. That night, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream, and God said, what do you want? Ask, and I will give it to you. Whatever you want. How would you respond to an offer like that from God? What do I want? A trip to Bermuda, to quote Daffy Duck. Personal peace and affluence. Well, that is not what young Solomon wanted. He was about 19, 20 years old at the time. Solomon says, give me an understanding heart so that I may govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself is able to govern this great people of yours? God, grant me wisdom. Well, how would God feel about a request like that? God was pleased. So much so, well, God gives more, much more. The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for wisdom. So God replied, because you've asked for wisdom in governing my people with justice and have not asked for a long life or wealth or the death of your enemies, I will give you what you've asked for. I will give you a wise and understanding heart such as no one else has had or ever will have. Wow. As you saw the opening picture, the wisest man who ever lived. And I will also give you what you have not asked for, riches and fame. Which a lot of the average bloke would have asked for that. Give me riches, give me fame, give me pleasure. But Solomon was focused on being a good and wise king. So God says, I'm going to give it all to you. So, you know, the story is King Solomon's mines, Hollywood theme there, that great treasures buried somewhere that King Solomon had amassed. And so for Israel, these were the good old days. The people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They were very contented. Things are going well. No complaints about the cost of living. With plenty to eat and drink, Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms and conquered the peoples of those lands, sent tribute money to Solomon, and continued to serve him throughout his lifetime. So yes, he was a kingpin in the whole region, and all the other nations did not fight against him anymore, and they in fact paid tribute every year. So his wealth just kept growing. Now, an example of his wisdom, what did that lead to? 1 Kings 4. He composed some 3,000 proverbs and wrote 1,005 songs. He could speak with authority about all kinds of plants, from the great cedar of Lebanon to the tiny hyssop that grows from cracks in the wall. He was smart too. He could also speak about animals, birds, small creatures and fish, very well educated. The kings from every nation sent their ambassadors to listen to the wisdom of Solomon. Wow. Who in our world today has that sort of recognition or status? Well, according to Donald Trump, he does. But that's another story. And we know the story about reading, but the Queen of Sheba came and she was just blown away by everything in the palace and by Solomon himself. And she gave heaps of spices and gold and all sorts of stuff. She was very impressed. So he had a reputation. He was famous for being so wise. In fact, there's one story, I'm not going to show you the text, but you've seen the picture, you know what that means? Do you remember the story? 2 mothers had newborn babes, and one of the mothers in her sleep rolled over and smothered her baby. And so she swapped her dead baby with the other woman's live baby. When the other woman woke up and found the baby dead, she said, "This isn't my baby." And so they argued about whose baby it was that was dead. So they brought the baby to King Solomon. They both said, "He's mine, he's mine." Now what would you do? Who's telling the truth? What was Solomon's response? Okay, tell you what, bring the baby here, we'll chop it in 2. You can both have a half. What a weird answer. One woman in the front says, no, spare his life, please, please. The other one says, yeah, do it. Solomon figures, yeah, you are not the mother, she's the mother. The word about that got out and the people know, thought, wow, what a man, what a genius, such wisdom, okay. discernment. An example of his wisdom. Well, thanks, James. So then Solomon builds a temple. Remember, David wanted to build the temple. God said, that's great, mate, but you're not the one to build it. So David just amassed all the stuff, the gold, the timber, etc. And then it was Solomon's job to build the temple. It took 7 years to build the temple, chapter 6. Another 13 years to build his own palace. You read that, whatever you want, I don't know. The glorious presence of the Lord filled the temple in chapter 8. In chapter 10, Solomon's great long prayer of dedicating the temple to the Lord, and the people would always turn to the temple in prayer in times of need. So it's a long chapter of prayer. So the temple is built by Solomon. Well, he had seen God once or twice, not quite sure now. So, but like his father before him, now King Solomon loved many foreign women. Besides Pharaoh's daughter, he married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, and Sidon, and even from among the Hittites. The Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, you must not marry them, because they will turn your hearts to their gods. He knew the law. He knew what God expected to keep the nation pure and to avoid the temptations of idolatry. Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyway. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. And in fact, they did turn his heart away from the Lord. The beginning of the end. Now, I'm going to talk now about, as I did with King David's story, we looked at the Psalms, because David's responsible for about half of the Psalms. I'm doing the same now with Solomon. Solomon is accredited, as you've just seen, of writing many Proverbs, and we have the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament. Oh, James, I forgot to ask you about this. Could we get that thing up and running? At the end? All right, good. We'll do it at the end. I've been using the Bible Project videos. They've got a great summary of the book. What I'm going to do is just cherry pick, if you will, the highlights. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 1 to 6. There's one time at a conference, I went to a seminar on scripture memory. And so Harvey, this guy, says, okay, go away in pairs and memorize Proverbs chapter 2, verse 1 to 6. That was so I memorized that morning, okay? This is a different version, so I'll have to read it. But, my child, listen to what I say and treasure my commands. Tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. Cry out for insight and ask for understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasures. Then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord, and you will gain the knowledge of God. For the Lord grants wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Brothers, sisters, it's my prayer that you desire to be wise in all your decision making. That you have a compass that's reliable and you know the true north of what God requires and you follow it. Then you will be blessed. So here Solomon is saying, seek for wisdom. You'll find it from God. You'll find it in his word. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Brothers, sisters, if you know that you don't know your Bible very well, then it's time to move. It's time to say, well, I want to address that. In fact, that's what sparked this whole series, wasn't it? That the Old Testament is still a mystery to so many believers. So let's unwrap the Old Testament. So there's this, seek it, seek it. In the next chapter begins, my child, the benefits of wisdom. My child, never forget the things I've taught you. Oh, we are so good at forgetting. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you will live many years and your life will be satisfying. What a great promise. Never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Tie them around your neck as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will earn a good reputation. How important is a good reputation? What people think of you, how they regard you or not. And that's got to be earned, a good reputation. So it's like, if you do these things, if you live by them, God will bless you and make you a blessing to others. Now, I'm going to look at a range of topics, like I said, cherry pick, if you will. Accept God's discipline. My child, don't reject the Lord's discipline, and don't be upset when he corrects you. For the Lord corrects those he loves, just as a father corrects a child in whom he delights. And this is quoted later in Hebrews chapter 12, these two verses. Look, we've raised 5 sons, and we love them all dearly, but when they were little John would want to open that drawer where the knives were, and even when we installed the little plastic thing to stop it opening, this curiosity. Well, whenever he went to that drawer, what did we do? I'm sorry, cut the tape. We spanked his hand and said, no. Is that because we're mean and want to restrict his freedom? That's to protect him, of course. You had to learn that there were boundaries in life and he needed to observe them. The Lord disciplines him whom he loves. One of the first verses our kids memorized. One of my favourite stories, our number one son memorised that, and he would always say, him whom he loves. He wasn't laughing, that's how he said it. And he said, Daddy, what's discipline? Well, that morning, this is in Adelaide, we had a veggie patch and tomato plants, and they're all like this, right? And so we put in stakes and tied up the tomato plants. I said, why did we do that, Evan? Was that to restrict the plants? No, it was to help them to grow up straight and to grow good fruit. That was my picture of discipline for my son. There are a lot of people who don't want to become Christians because they fear that God's going to interfere with their freedoms. In other words, they love sin more than they love righteousness or right living. So, accept God's discipline. Pride and humility is another big theme throughout Proverbs. A couple of examples, 8:13. All who fear the Lord will hate evil. Therefore, I hate pride and arrogance, corruption and perverse speech. When I see pride in myself, no, Costa. Pride leads to disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. Teachability. One of the biggest obstacles to being teachable is the thought that I already know all this, how can you help me? Okay? And when there's that arrogance and reluctance to learn anything new, that person's not going to go far. So what's your attitude? We said to our trusted friends as we were raising our kids, if you see anything that our kids do that you think we should know or address, we give you permission to bring those things up. That was a trusting thing to do. but also a wise thing to do. Whenever we saw an older couple with older kids who were following the Lord, we always made a point of saying, hey, what's your top tip, How did you do it? What's the key to being a good parent? We'd always deliberately asked and sought their advice on those things. Teachable spirit requires humility. Folly is another theme. Fools think that their own way is right, but the wise listens to others. Do not correct a scoffer or he'll hate you. Correct a wise man and he will love you. That was another proverb. Chapter 9, verse 8, I think. Okay. Even when Jesus said all these evil things come from within and they defile a man, what comes out of the person's heart is what defiles them. Folly is in that list, along with adultery, lying, etc., etc. Folly, even foolishness in the heart, is evil that comes from within. 27:12, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. Paul wrote, walk circumspectly. Circum, look around, spect is to see. Walk carefully. If we do this, if we allow our children to do this, where is that heading? And he wants to sit on his tablet for unrestricted time. Where's that heading? It's heading to pornography is where it's heading, okay? So, as parents, we need to look forward, where is this heading with our kids? We would often ask. And we need to say that too. And you start to watch a show and it looks good, then you realise, SVU, Special Victims Unit, what about victims of sexual crime? Some of the themes on that just got so dark. We just decided, sorry, well written, but this is not what I want to fill my head with an hour a week. I think this is normal or entertaining. So we cut it off. Haven't watched it since. I did the same with Tetris. You know the Tetris game? I'm at a conference, I'm looking at the speaker, Christian conference, and my brain was playing Tetris. And the shapes were coming down and I couldn't shake it. I thought, whoa, that's dangerous. So I haven't touched it since, and that's about 20 years ago. All right? Walk wisely. And what's the definition of insanity? To do the same thing over and over and expect the results to be different. Okay, that's an insane way to live. Learn from your mistakes. Respond. Change your behaviour. That's the way of wisdom, not the way of folly. Speech. At Melbourne Uni Choral Society, I developed the nickname, or I earned the nickname La Bouche. You know what that means? The mouth. Sharing stuff I really shouldn't have, didn't realise. And I told it to my spiritual dad, and Dave Marshall said, okay, tell you what, Costa, once you get the book of Proverbs, and write out every single verse that talks about the tongue and use of the tongue. 6 pages later, I finished Proverbs. Here are some of them. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. It says elsewhere, even the fool who keeps his mouth shut will be considered wise. But if you talk too much, I called this verse, plug it where it leaks. 18:2. Fools have no interest in understanding. They only want to air their own opinions. I have an example of this. In the honours stream at Melbourne Uni, we had a world-class professor teaching us for 4 weeks on externalities. Won't get all that now. And Howard and I stayed back to talk to this professor. And Howard wouldn't stop talking. I don't know, trying to impress him or what, the professor, I don't know. But this verse was new in my vocabulary at the time, and I thought, the fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. Oy. Next, Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer or a soft answer turns away wrath or deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. Harsh words stirs up anger. And you know that. You're talking to someone and they're getting a bit agitated or saying something about you or someone you care about. If you react, speak back harshly, it's only going to escalate the problem. But if you have a way of deflecting it, a soft answer, then you will de-escalate the problem. Fire goes out without wood, and quarrels disappear when gossip stops. When we gossip, we're putting wood on the fire and we're making the situation worse, more volatile. And it is, well, not good behaviour to stir up conflict. One of the churches we went to years ago, there was such a lot of that going on, about division about what to do with the associate pastor. And it was almost like, whose side are you on? You know, it was just not very pleasant to be around. I thank God we have none of that here at Southern Cross. Speech is a big one. Is that an area where I should give you the assignment, or you should accept the assignment of, yeah, I'll go and I'll write down every verse that talks about speech. There's a lot of them. Diligence, work hard. Take a lesson, Proverbs 6:6-8. Take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones, O sluggard. Learn from their ways and become wise. There's that word again. Though they have no prince or governor or ruler to make them work, they labour hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. No one's telling them to do it, forcing them to do it. They're just working hard now, and it'll pay off later. Learn your lesson from the ant. Proverbs 13:4. Lazy people want much but get little, but those who work hard will prosper. And say a guy's got all the natural talent in the world, but he doesn't train. The piano, got a talent. But if you don't practice, you're never going to master it. You're never going to be brilliant. You'll be good, but those who work hard will prosper. And I don't know much about Generation X and Y and Z, but they all have a different reputation about their attitude to work. Okay. One time, I got a phone call in the morning. I was a relatively young Christian. Got out of bed, still in my jammies, picked it up. It was Barry Wyatt. He figured out I'd just gotten out of bed. And he says to me, as a door swings back and forth on its hinges, so is the sluggard upon his bed. On the door hinge, always moving, not getting anywhere. So that was Barry's loving dig at me. Some of these proverbs are really great pictures, and I think that's a good picture of a lazy person, always turning, never getting anywhere. There's other ones that says he puts his hand in the food, in the bowl to pick up the food. He's too lazy to bring it back to his own mouth. You know, I mean, there's some pretty colourful ones there. But diligence. Your university results will depend not upon good luck, but how hard you work. And the more you study, the more effort you put in, the better your results will be. I have only one word for that, duh. As I would always say to my students in the first ever tutorial or lecture, you're free to do whatever you want. You just never be free to choose the consequences of the choices that you make. No study, no pass. Sorry, I don't owe you anything. You've got to earn it. Diligence. Generosity. Give freely and become more wealthy. Be stingy and lose everything. The giver is the getter. What is that? Proverbs 3, 9 and 10. Honour the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Then he will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine. That's the promise. Honour the Lord. How do I do that? Well, support his work, help others who are in need. If I do it to them, to the poor and needy, I'm doing it for the Lord. But my money isn't my money. It's the Lord's money, and he wants you to use it well as a good steward. And to just spend it on yourself and your own pleasure is what God says, we're going to lose it. But use your wealth to bless others. Therefore, my beloved brethren, what can I say? Each of us is on a journey. And we're each at different stages due to your age, your life experiences, your family background, emotional, psychological issues. We all have them. But each one of us can choose to grow in maturity and wisdom. You are where you are right now because that's where the Lord has brought you so far. Are you content to just stay there or say, no, I want more? Next week, Mia and I will be away, and Gary's going to share, Gary Kay's dad. And I'm going to come back, and my next talk will be not on Proverbs, but Solomon's other two books, Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon. And Ecclesiastes is especially like, man, what's the point? It's a joke. And I think that's after he'd reached here's a proverb showing Solomon at his peak, the wisdom, and then as he falls away from God, his thoughts become futile. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity, striving after wind, meaningless. What's the point? We'll see about that next time. Okay, but if I had not become a Christian during my first year at university, I think I'd be dead by now. The way I was heading, I'd be dead by now. Now, temperament types, personality, may help to explain your behaviour, but it doesn't excuse it. Well, that's the way I am, Lord. I'm a sanguine. I live in the present. You're the person in front of me. You're the most important person in the world. Then I go talk to someone else and I forget all about you. You know? Or I'm a great starter but a lousy finisher. Well, God, that's the way you made me, right? Or I'm shy. And I don't talk to people and I find it hard. Yeah, that's your natural inclination. But you're going to stay there. Are you happy to stay there? Or do you want to move on? So my final therefore is, start by committing to read Proverbs, a chapter a day. There are 31 chapters. Meditate and pray through any key verses that God's Spirit lays on your heart. Especially if there's something now, you've received now these sheets, these discussion questions, which will break up into groups of 4 or 5 very soon. What I want to do is look at this video because I just think there's such good value of Proverbs. So James, I'll hand over to you. Thank you. Okay, that will be the end of the sermon, yes. And straight after this video, we'll break up into groups, but you don't need to film, of course. Bible Project.